Welcome back, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight? So, I figured we'd kind of do something a little different tonight and take a ride on the Wayback Machine. Uh, Oddly enough, this isn't really way back. This was the very first Beckett Magic the Gathering price guide that came out in 2005, August, September of 2005 here. So, the most comprehensive Magic price guide. There was some other Magic price guides out before this, but this one was kind of, Beckett's, so it was kind of a big deal. It was really the first time that Magic seemed to cross over into the sports card world, because Beckett was known as being the big sports card graders and whatnot back then. And grading Magic cards was still kind of a newer thing. So, but it's kind of interesting to go back and look at this because some of the prices in here are going to blow your mind. What is funny is that, the prices didn't really go up very quickly from, 94 to when I started to 2005. I mean, they went up, but they didn't go up like you'd think they really would have, and even for years after this, when I was still playing, I think I played up until about 2008, 2007, 2008 before I sold my collection, and I just happened to keep this. Guy that bought my collection just wanted the cards. He didn't want any of the other stuff that went with it, so this just ended up in a box in storage. But anyways, figure we kind of go through it, and I'd show you some really cool stuff from back then, and show you some of the prices from back then that are gonna absolutely blow your mind. So, I'm not going to go through everything in here, just kind of going to scroll through it a little bit. 100% Magic, first time Beckett did something that was all Magic related. There's deck tech Q&As and stuff with expert players, some combo talk and whatnot. This was the year, this was actually right when Saviors of Kamigawa was about to come out. So, here we go, here's some good pricing stuff. So there's actually, in here, there's spoilers for Saviors of Kamigawa. They actually did spoilers in magazines back then, because the internet really wasn't a huge thing yet, especially not as it pertained to Magic. So yeah, they didn't really do a lot of the spoilers online. They really kind of did them in magazines and stuff back then. Spent a little more time and did it right, not this throwing together things at the last minute and cramming an entire set into 8 days kind of spoiler thing. So anyway, let's take a look at some of these box prices from Ideal Collectibles. so they've got boxes back then from, let me zoom in here, there you go. You can see that second line down, they had 8th edition boxes for $58. Betrayers boxes for $75. Champions for $75. You can get Alliances boxes for $200. Yep, Alliance boxes full of Force of Wills in the uncommon slot for $200 back then. Apocalypse $180. Chronicles was actually more than Alliances. Can you believe that? Back then, Chronicles was kind of a newer set still, so, and it had all the reprints everybody wanted. Dark Steel $77. Exodus $180. Fifth Dawn $75. Homelands $110. It wasn't worth much back then even. Invasion $150. Judgment $90. I mean, how'd you like to go back and get some of these boxes at these prices? Man, I'd spend every dollar I had. Onslaught boxes $74.95. That's the big one right there. Onslaught we're going to talk a lot about. So Onslaught $75 a box back then. Yeah, and it had been out of print for several years at this point, because back then they didn't have the crazy multiple print runs like they do now. They really just did like a couple big print runs, and that was it. The original sets, there was only one print run, Arabian Nights, Antiquities, Legends, Dark, they only had one print run. When it was gone, it was gone. Keep looking down here. So Stronghold, $135 a box. Tempest, actually, it was $350 a box, which is kind of weird. Now, obviously, we know Alliances is worth more than Tempest, but back then, Tempest was actually worth more. And look at the Dark, $450 a box. Is it even $450 a box now? There's really not much in that set worth anything, so I remaze a bit. Unhinged, $55 a box. Unhinged was kind of a joke set still, you know. The Urza's boxes, obviously, you can see were already pretty pricey, even though they hadn't been out of print for terribly long, just a few years at this point, I think. But they were already $300-400 a box because of the cards in Urza's block were just absolutely incredible. So there you go. That's pretty crazy. Some of the box prices back then. This was just an average seller that was advertising in here. Well, they were a bigger store apparently because they got a full full page in here. Let me see if there's anything in the single cards that are kind of. See, the only single cards they have listed were just from the Betrayer or the Kamigawa block, so the prices are a little crazy. There's some that were really expensive back then that aren't really expensive now and stuff because they were actually in standard at the time. And over here you can see the World Championship decks were actually a big deal at the time. Some of them range in between $35 and $230 for the World Championship decks. So kind of weird. So those were kind of newer thing, and they were really popular because you could actually play with the deck that the World Champions won with. Because you know back then we didn't have the whole net decking thing. You know, you couldn't just get online and see what the current deck was that was winning in what do they call it? Whatever the Mythic Championship is. Anyways, so there wasn't a lot of deck copying back then. Everybody most people made their own decks. So when they released those whole decks and people could actually copy the World Championship deck, so it's kind of a big deal. Here's David Adams Card World. Look at that. There's an old ad from them. Here's kind of the top 10 lifetime winnings. Looks like number 1 was Kai Bood at the time from Germany. He had won $348,595. And 10th place looks like, oh, this is kind of funny. It actually goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 5. You see that? Oh, good old Beckett and their misprints. Yeah, it goes from 9 to 5. Yeah, but the number 10 was American dude. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that name. With $141,460. That's lifetime earnings. So, yeah, they make a little bit more than that now. All right, so just kind of keep cruising along. There's some really cool stuff in here. So here's a High Grade Magic was advertising. They had a buy list. Some of their buy prices. We'll pay $12,000 for a box of Alpha. $12,000 for a box of Beta. Yeah, I'm sure you will. $5,000 for a box of Unlimited. Sure you will. So, here's a little big article on how to play Gifts Ungiven. They actually had entire articles on how to play a card back then. Cards that are better than you think. Talking about the underappreciated cards from the Kamigawa set. Here's just more advertising for sleeves, decks to beat. Just going over some of the basic standard decks at the time. Some top 10 Kamigawa strategies. Sensei's Divining Top was number 9 on the list of top 10. Pithing Needle was 4. Oh, Tooth and Nail. I remember that one. That was a great card. Tooth and Nail. This card here. I don't know if anybody's familiar with this one, but when this came out, this card was beastly. So it was a green card, 2 green, 5 colorless. Search your library for up to 2 creature cards. Reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library and put up to 2 creature cards from your hand into play. Or put up to 2 creature cards from your hand into play, but it had an intertwine cost. Entwine meant that you could add an additional cost and do both instead of just choosing one. So for 2 green and 7 colorless, you could actually search your library for 2 creatures and put them right on the board. So pretty broken card at the time. Now you look at that and go, oh, that's way too expensive. I would never cast that. We got things like, what's the green? I can't even think of it now. Yeah, the green card from Core 20 that lets you green plus X, search your library for creature cards, put them into play, and then they get, if you spend over 10, they get plus X, yeah. Can't think, it's late. So, but yeah, Tooth and Nail was huge when it came out. It was a massive card when it came out. Yeah, everybody had a Tooth and Nail deck. I had a Tooth and Nail deck. You can go get any 2 creatures, put them on the board. Pretty much you won. You pretty much won that time. We had big old hasty creatures at the time. So here's kind of some breakdowns of some Kamigawa cards, looks like. Or was this the spoiler? Was this Savior's spoiler? Oh yeah, this is the spoiler list. So here we go. Saviors of Kamigawa spoil list. Here's your complete guide to all Saviors of Kamigawa cards. So as you can see, they'd only put a photo of every few, and then they'd put a description of every one, because, you know, it was a lot. That would be a lot of photos back then. And they got an advertisement here. But, yep, so this was it. They just had a few of the cards actually showing, and then they had a breakdown list of all the cards in each color. So this is how the spoilers were back then when I was younger. We had to wait for magazines to come out and check out the spoilers, and then we had to buy the magazine to see the spoilers. A whole $6 for this magazine. It wasn't cheap either. Oh, but you could win an 8 graded unlimited Black Lotus. There you go. Win the rare Black Lotus. There's a poster that I didn't pull out. Same art that's on the cover. I forget what card that is. So, 9th edition update. Now this is something I thought was really cool. Back in the day, WotC actually used to care what the players thought. I know, crazy, right? They actually used to, before sets came out, reprint sets like the standard set. This was 9th edition. If you can read this top part here, I'll read it for you. It says, in a recent poll, or a recent online poll at www.magicthegathering.com, fans were asked to vote for the cards, artwork, and flavor text that would be included in the 9th edition set. The results are in, and here's who won. So you can see they actually, on the website back then, they would put up 2 different artworks for cards, or different cards that they wanted to put in the set, and they would ask people to vote on them. And whichever artwork got the better printing, or whichever or got the most votes, or whichever card got the most votes, that's what they put in the set. So you can see here, like they asked people if they wanted Mana Leak or Memory Lapse in the set, and obviously people voted Memory Leak, or Mana Leak in Memory Leak. Put them together. They voted Mana Leak in the set. That's why Mana Leak was in 9th edition. Otherwise, it would have been possibly Memory Lapse if the votes had gone the other way. That's why they reprinted Rothy Dragon, which wasn't supposed to really be reprinted, but they asked people if they wanted that one or Bolduvian Horde, and they chose the Rothy Dragon. So yeah, it's kind of cool how some of the cards got in 9th edition back then was actually by people voting for them online. This one I'm kind of surprised about. They actually voted to put a Temporal Adept into the set instead of the Time Elemental. It's kind of weird. We all thought that was a little unusual. Time Elemental was a lot easier to cast. They both did pretty much the same thing, but Time Elemental was easier to cast because it had colorless mana in the cost instead of all blue. So, anyways, yeah. So there's why some of these cards were in 9th edition, and some different artworks and stuff. So they actually let people vote on them back then on Wizards' website. So pretty wild. So yeah, cool stuff. They actually put they put questionnaires and stuff in some of the packs, some of the tournament packs. I actually have a couple here, and I want to actually, one of these days we'll go through and we'll fill them out together. I'll make a video. We'll fill out the questionnaires that came in the tournament packs. This actually had a long interview, well, not long, a couple page interview with Richard Garfield himself, talking about the game and whatnot, and it was pretty neat. So it shows looks like an Alpha pack and a Arabian Nights pack, looks like. So pretty wild. And it's got his unhinged card in there too. So got Garfield's favorite cards in here too. Of course, Scheherazade was one of his favorite cards. Scheherazade was a wacky card back in the day. It's been banned forever because it's an Annie card. It basically lets you start a new game aside from the game you're playing, but it makes you Annie another card. So because it's an Annie card, it was banned because we stopped playing for Annie because, you know, people got stabbed for cards and stuff. So fights broke out at Friday Night Magic because of Annie. I saw a couple myself. All right, and then there's the band update also. So this is how they banned cards back then too. They actually would do them in magazines. They would announce the bans in magazines, so there was a lot more of a heads up that there was going to be a ban. They were a little more regular. It wasn't emergency. Oh God, let's ban this card quick. Somebody won the game with it. This is when they banned Arcbound Ravager the first time. Great card. Everybody had a Arcbound Ravager set when they first came out. That was the most expensive card in Dark Steel when the set dropped. Everybody wanted that card. It was just a beast. If you're not familiar with it, it's a 2-drop artifact. It comes into play with a 1/1 counter on it. But when it was modular, so whenever it left play, you can take that 1/1 counter and put it on a different artifact creature. But it had sacrifice an artifact, put a 1/1 counter on Arcbound Ravager. So everybody was filling up their decks with a bunch of 0-drop like Ornithopters and stuff, or like 1-drop Skull Clamps and whatnot. And they get a bunch of artifacts on the board and then swing with Ravager and sack everything and pump them all up real big. And even if you killed it, all those counters would just go on to a different artifact creature. So it was pretty crazy. Skull Clamp got banned. Skull Clamp was awesome. They didn't intend on it being awesome, but, you know, of course, we all cheated the system. So basically, a Skull Clamp's a 1-drop. It's kind of hard to see because of the reflection of the light there, but Skull Clamp was a 1-drop equipment that gives target creature +1, -1. And when equipped creature, I just can't talk tonight, is put into a graveyard from play, draw 2 cards, and it only costs 1 to equip. So what we would do is we would have a bunch of 1/1 creatures, and we would just equip them. They die because of the -1, and then we draw 2 cards. So this really sped the game up. It's an awesome card. I love that card. It's a shame that that WotC hates it. And then I think Dark Steel Citadel was actually banned according to this at the time, which was just an artifact land, but it was indestructible. But it only gave you 1 colorless. I don't know. It's an indestructible land. Why was it banned? I don't know. But here's some of the other banned lists and restricted lists. Banned list and standard was all the artifact lands, and then Skull Clamp and the Ravager. Yep, so they banned all the artifact lands. Because a lot of people were sacking the artifact lands to Ravager too, now that I recall. That's right. So everybody was sacking not only a whole bunch of cheap artifacts, but they were also sacking all their artifact lands as well, which was awesome. I loved playing with the Ravager decks. They were fun. And then there's the extended ban list. Ancient Tomb, Dark Ritual. They banned Dark Ritual from extended. I think extended is kind of what they used to call what is Legacy now. I think that's what extended kind of was back then. Dream Halls, Earthcraft, Entomb, Frantic Search, Goblin Lackey, Goblin Recruiter, Grim Monolith, Hermit Druid, Lotus Petal, Memory Jar, Metal Worker, Mind Over Matter, Oath of Druids, Replenish, Survival of the Fittest, Skull Clamp again, Time Spiral, Tinker, Tellurian Academy. That's right, Tellurian Academy used to be banned in Extended, which I think is Legacy now. Windfall, Yawgmoth's Bargain, and Yawgmoth's Will. So, yep, there's your band update in the magazine. What do we got here? Here's some more stuff happening from Type 2 to Vintage. Oh, you can't see that. Vintage to Type 2. So there's a lot of stuff they're talking about in there, like Pithing Needle getting restricted, I believe, and stuff. It used to be called Type 1 and Type 2. And then they made the extended one, so they changed it to Extended and Vintage, and then Type 2, which was standard back then. So, but it's kind of funny, because I think this was right when they were kind of changing all that over, because it says ban list for standard here, but then it calls it Type 2 here. So, a little weird. I'm not really sure what all happened with all those, because I wasn't playing when all that stuff got sorted out, and they figured out, and now they got 75 different playing formats. I wasn't playing at the time, so there's a little thing on BGS grading, a little article on BGS grading, the Beckett grading system. But here's the meaty stuff. So here's your price list on stuff from, now remember, this was 2005. In 2005, a near mint 1993 Alpha Black Lotus was, let's see if I can zoom in close enough on that. $2,000 to $2,600. That's low and high on a selling price on a near mint alpha Black Lotus. How many Black Lotuses, alpha mint Black Lotuses, would you buy for $2,000 if you could buy them right now? Let's look at the Moxes. Where's the Moxen at? I gotta find the M. There we go. Moxes at the time. See if I can get an angle where you can see. We're between $550 and $825, except for the Sapphire was the most expensive. Blue's always been more expensive. $750 to $1,000. How many of the Moxes would you buy at that price? These are near mint alphas, by the way. Betas are about the same price in here, but Unlimited was actually a lot cheaper. Unlimited, and the reason alpha and beta were about the same price back then is because a lot of players hated alpha because alpha had the different corners, so we couldn't play with them back then. They were not tournament legal back then. A lot of people still weren't playing with sleeves, so by this point, most people were playing with sleeves, but there were still some people that were just old school and hated using sleeves. And the alphas you couldn't stack in a deck without sleeves because, the corners were different. In fact, I don't even know if they were allowed even in sleeves. I think that was just a rule that got changed later, or I don't know, they might not still allow them. I don't know anybody that plays with alpha cards. So, but a lot of the players hated alpha because of the different corners, so they weren't tournament legal. The betas were, however. So the betas were actually, when I started playing, the betas were worth more than the alphas because of the corner difference thing. Plus, beta had dual lands, alpha didn't, so there's that. But let's look at Unlimited now. Unlimited Black Lotus, where are we? Where are we? Are we up here at the top? No, we're down here somewhere. Oh, there it is. I'm not used to seeing such small prices. Unlimited Black Lotus, near mint. That looks like $9.50 to $12.50. Can you see that? $9.50 to $12.50 for a near mint Unlimited Black Lotus. Yeah, I'd buy a few of those if that was the price today. If I found them for that price right now, I'd scoop them up. All right, so where's the Moxes? Here, Moxen. Oh, there they are. So the Moxen and Unlimited were on the low end $400, on the high end $625. So that's for near mint Unlimited Moxes. Yeah. So yeah, these prices were pretty steadily like this. I mean, when I started playing back in like 94, I think, Black Lotus was like about a $200, $250 card, and the Moxes were about $50 to $75, $50 to $80. I mean, in that price range. That was, like I said, the week that Revised came out. So they had just recently been cut, I think the alphas and betas were worth a little bit more, but Unlimiteds were not very expensive, and they stayed that way for quite a few years. They just gradually kind of got more expensive over the years. It's kind of crazy how it worked. They didn't have really, they didn't go up quick. It wasn't like as soon as they were out of print, everybody was like, "Oh my God, I got to get some now!" The prices didn't go up very fast. It's kind of wild. Let's look at some dual lands. All right, so we got so they started beta. So let's find a beta Badlands. Well, actually, let's do the what is it? The Tropical Island's the most expensive one now. It wasn't back then. I think Volcanic Island was the most expensive one back then. Let me see. Tropical Island, yeah, so beta Tropical Island back then was $125 to $200. Beta Volcanic Island, where is it? $150 to $225. See? So yeah, it was actually more for the Volcanic Island was slightly more back then. Oh, you can't see that. I'm doing terrible with this. So there you go. There's a Volcanic Island from beta. Now let's look at Revised. So Revised on the next page here. Revised dual lands back then. Now this was 2005. This was quite a few years after Revised, because Revised was 94, right? Or 90, yeah, 94, early 94, I think. Where is it? I can't spell either. Can't talk, can't spell. Okay, Tropical Island, here we go. Tropical Island from Revised at the time was $28 to $32. And a Volcanic Island, up at the top here, $30 to $38. See, the Volcanic Island was the most expensive one back then. Underground Sea was only $28 to $38 also. So I think back then it was Volcanic Island, Underground Sea, and then Tropical Island. Now it's obviously kind of switched around a little bit more because Simic is a lot more popular than whatever the Niv-Mizzet colors are there. I keep forgetting what they call it. Is it? I think that's it. I don't know. But anyways, so, you know, that's kind of what dual lands were when I sold my collection. They a few years later, they really hadn't gone up much. In fact, I think they went down a little bit. I think they're around the $20 to $25 range when I sold my collection, most of them. So yeah, hindsight being 2020, I really kind of hosed myself pretty good on that one. So anyway, we can take a look at some other little bit crazier cards, a little bit more popular stuff here. Some other sets. It's kind of funny, years later with these price guides, they would only put stuff that was like over a few dollars in value. But back then, there wasn't that many sets out, so they literally put every card in the set. So they actually have every card in Fallen Empires listed. You see that there? Every card in Fallen Empire is listed, and they're all like 20 to 30 cents, like every single card of this set. There's a couple that, there's $1, there's $2, $2. What's the most expensive card in Fallen Empires? It is the Elvish Farmer is the most expensive card in Fallen Empires in 2005. It was $2 to $4. I think now it's the Rainbow Veil, I think is the most expensive card. Let me see how much that one was back then. Rainbow Veil back then, you could pick up for, oh god, it won't focus. Focus. Rainbow Veil, 75 cents to $1.50 back then. That's how much a Rainbow Veil was. So you can pick up Rainbow Veils for 75 cents to $1.50 all day long. So about $1 for a Rainbow Veil. Yeah. So that's it. Still worth about the same. A little bit different, but not much. All right, so I wanted to talk about, okay, we can check alliances real quick. We can look for our Force of Will. Pretty easy to tell because the biggest number in the whole list of cards for alliances. $20 to $25 for Force of Wills back then. Yep, so, you know, some of the cards haven't gone up a considerable amount because we knew right away that they were really good cards and really usable. But, you know, some of them went up a lot. Like Guy's Cradle. I had a couple play sets of those when I sold my collection. Yeah, I know, kicking myself right now. And at the time, they were only worth about 20 bucks a card, 22 to 27 per card. Yep. And then Tellurian Academy. Where's he at? There we go. Tellurian Academy was actually less. Tellurian Academy was only $18 to $23. Which is kind of surprising because I started stacking the hell out of Tellurian Academies during the Mirrodin Darksteel era because all the artifacts. We were running these mostly artifact decks, so Tellurian Academy was a huge mana ramp back then. We didn't need the blue, but, I mean, you could tap one land and get, like, 20 mana, so you could cast everything you wanted to. Lots of X-spells getting thrown around back then. I don't want to waste too much time with too much of this. I'm sure this video is getting long already. Yep, already 30 minutes. But I wanted to go to, where is it? It should be right around here somewhere. There it is, Onslaught. Let's check out the Onslaught prices from 2002. Check out some Polluted Deltas, I guess. I think that's the most expensive one now, right? Polluted Delta is the of the fetch lands. Back then, Polluted Delta could be yours for $10 to $12 each. And that's near mint. So knock some off for played condition. There you go. So that's original Onslaught ones. And Onslaught foils here. So a Polluted Delta foil back then was only $15 to $25. Foils hadn't really caught on quite as much yet as they are now. They weren't really, we didn't have a lot of people trying to build entirely foil decks back then. It was just more of those the money bags kind of players that had so many cards they had nothing better to do, you know. The standard players didn't care about foils back then, really. So the foil premium was not quite as premium as it is now. So, kind of crazy stuff. Just kind of wanted to go over some of this and show you what was going on. Kind of check out an old price list. Check out some old prices. See what kind of wackiness was happening back then. Yeah, things have changed a lot. You know, like I said, even when I quit in like 2007, 2008 era, you know, things weren't nearly as, I like Star City Games was advertising. They bought a whole page. It was a terrible advertisement, though. Look at it. It's awful. Anyway, that's before they were running the tournaments and all that. And an ad for 9th edition, which was coming out soon. Yeah, it was Saviors of Kamigawa, and then 9th edition dropped after that. So, there you go. I just want to kind of show you some old Magic history and talk about some old prices and whatnot. You know, I mean, the prices didn't really, they kind of stayed just steadily kind of going up, you know, up until it looks like about 2016 when all the reserve list buyout stuff happened and all this stuff just went through the roof on things. I mean, you look at these old price lists and things were pretty much, you know, kind of average across all the sets. You know, they went up a little bit over time on the more playable cards, but, you know, I mean, moxes and unlimited moxes were under $1,000. You know, dual lands were around 20-25 bucks for the most times you could pick them up for, you know. I mean, these prices in here are near mint, kind of more higher end from stores. But I mean, when you were buying them off your friends or even buying them from your local game store, you could usually, they'd have 25 bucks on it. You'd usually walk out of there for 20 bucks with the card, you know. So it's pretty crazy how things went back then compared to now. Like, here we go. Complete set of alpha back then was only valued about $9,000 to $12,000, and a starter box was about $9,500 to $12,000. Starter deck was $900 to $1,200, and a booster box was $1,200 to, what's that say, $1,500, and then the booster pack was $400 to $550. So I mean, those prices have changed quite a bit in the past 15 years. So, you know, but before then, I mean, it took 20 years to get to this point, or 10 years to get to this point. 12 or 13 years to get to this point, you know, because this was late 2005. I don't know, I don't remember exactly when alpha dropped. It was sometime in 93. I don't remember if it was early. Oh, it says right there. It actually says right there, you dummy. August of 1993 is when it dropped. So, and this came out in August 2005, so it was exactly 17 years it took for the prices to get that high. And then in the past 15 years, they've, you know, gone way higher. So, yeah, it's kind of wild. I just kind of came across this and my stuff and figured I'd do a video. Figured some of you guys out there might like to see this old stuff and talk about these old prices and the old cards and whatnot, and what was popular when Saviors of Kamigawa dropped. You know, what cards were considered like overpowered. You know, the Arcbound Ravager was the most powerful card in the game probably at the time. I mean, it was a beast. So it was getting banned everywhere. So and they banned the artifact lands just so you couldn't sack them to them. They didn't just ban him, they banned everything you were sacking to it. You know, it's kind of funny. So anyways, let me know what you guys think of all this stuff, and were you guys playing back then? When did you guys start? You know, did you take breaks like I did? You know, I started at Revise, so it would have been, yep, April of 1994 is when I started. And then I stopped at, let me see, where did I stop? I stopped a little after Homelands, I believe, right? Yep. Yeah, I stopped after Homelands. in October of 95. So I only played for about a year and a half, the first shot. And I stopped then, not because of Homelands, really. It was actually Ice Age, which came out a few months before that, June of 95. I didn't have any problems with the sets, but my friend who, my friends who got me into the game, my main friend at the time that got me into the game, and then his play group all quit when Ice Age dropped because, believe it or not, Icy Manipulator was their favorite card, and he had really speculated on that. Now, this guy had unopened boxes of Alpha and Beta and Unlimited, and he had probably a few hundred sets of Power 9, because he knew. He had the vision, man, he knew. But Icy Manipulator was his favorite card, and he was kind of almost doing a buyout on Icy Manipulator back then, which... before Ice Age dropped, Icy Manipulator was like a $25 card, but as soon as they reprinted it in Ice Age, almost overnight, it dropped down to $4. So, $2 to $4 almost overnight. So he was furious about that, because he might have had like 1,000 Icy Manipulators, the original ones. So he quit. He sold all his cards and bought a house with cash back then because he had so much Power 9 and so much sealed product. But man, if he kept it now, he'd be a multi-millionaire. He'd probably be worth 10-20 million if he kept all this stuff he had now, on the low end probably. So yeah, it was I kind of tried to keep playing a little bit longer because they all quit right after Ice Age came out. I played till a little after Homelands, but that's when Wizards started getting the young kids into the game, and little kids started showing up at Magic Nights and just kind of ruining everything. The stores had to start closing earlier, and there's kids crying and whining about losing. It just kind of sucked all the fun out of it. So I actually stopped before Alliances came out, so now I never got Alliances at all the first time around. So I didn't play for a couple years. I started back at, I missed the Urza's block too, which really sucked. I think I started back around like Nemesis, Invasion, Prophecy era. I started somewhere in that era, so that was somewhere between February 2000 and September 2000, according to this. So it looks like Invasion came out, and if you can see that, September of 2000. And Nemesis came out in February 2000. Prophecy was June of 2000. So, as you can see, there was a lot more distance between the sets back then, too. And that was it. There's Nemesis, Prophecy, and then Invasion. You don't see any other sets intertwined in there. They weren't releasing a million sets back then. They weren't releasing master sets and all that stuff. It was, we had from February to June, a half a year to get excited about the next set and have time to really play with this set and get used to it and find out what worked and what didn't and what cards we liked, what cards we didn't. And, buy packs and collect more of that set until the next set dropped. And then we had 6 months until the next set dropped. Or, well, what was that, about 5 months? About 5 months till the next set dropped. So, I mean, we had plenty of time back then to really get excited about a set, and they had time to slow roll the spoilers and magazines and stuff. Not like now where they're just rush, and let's throw as much out there as we can and just damn people's wallets. They can't afford it, they're losers, So, anyway, that's when I got back into it, but I didn't really get super kind of serious about playing until the Odyssey block. Once the Odyssey block kind of hit, which was September 2001, I was really just playing kind of kitchen table Magic with my friends during this whole era, so I didn't get a whole lot of this stuff at the time. But then when Odyssey block came out, I started playing at Friday Night Magics and started getting real serious about playing every weekend and buying a lot of boxes and stuff. So that Odyssey, Torment, Judgment era, and then into the Legions, Onslaught, Legions, and Scourge era, and then of course the Mirrodin, Darksteel, and Fifth Dawn era. I was huge into playing. I was like, pretty much ranking in the top 10 or 12 in my county at the time on the DCI. I think they called it Duelist Convocation List or whatever back then, whatever they did for the to keep score of the players and all that. And then, of course, the Champions and Betrayers and Saviors of Kamigawa came out. I loved those sets. They were a lot of fun because they were different. You know, they had the Oriental theme to them and whatnot. So they came out. They were a lot of fun. All the ninjutsu cards and stuff. But they weren't as much fun as the Mirrodin block. Obviously, Mirrodin block was incredible. And then the block after that was the Time Spiral block, which was absolutely amazing. I love the Time Spiral block. But then, you know, life happened and had a girlfriend running up bills and needed money and ended up selling the cards because I wasn't playing on a regular basis, and then didn't play for 12 years until last November, and here I am. So hope you guys enjoyed this. This is a stupid long video, but there you go, little piece of Magic history. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video. There's probably some suggestions up there. Thanks guys, take care, have a great night, bye.